Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont. We'll be talking about Destiny 2 in this video. An interesting game because it has a lot of potential, but at times it feels like there's as many things bad with it as there are good. So the topic today is, how could Destiny 2 become a great game? That's a great game for me, because of course for you, a great game could be something different. Naturally, I invite you to share your opinions in the comments. As for quick background context, I played Destiny 1 from launch up through Taken King. Likewise, I played Destiny 2 at launch. I thought it sucked and then I took a break from it for around 3 years. Since starting back up again, I've put some 400 hours into it. Even so, I'm what you'd consider a casual player probably. I don't raid because I only have 2 friends who play the game, and whilst I've tackled a few of the raids with randoms, just doesn't appeal to me as much as when I did the Destiny 1 raids with a full group of friends. I don't do Trials of Osiris, I just do Nightfalls and Strikes and whatnot. I imagine there's a lot of players out there who are similar to me, invested, but casually so. On that same note, I know there's a lot of hardcore players and people who focus on one thing or another. Like with any MMO, the reasons for playing Destiny can be quite diverse. With that said, let's jump in. I'm going to start with the most controversial opinion. PvP. My thoughts on PvP in Destiny are, effectively, remove it. If you ask me, removing PvP would benefit every player of the game, including those who play it for the PvP. One quick aside to that last point, is you probably think I'm insane, but hear me out. If you play Destiny solely or primarily for the PvP and they removed it, what would you do? Well, you'd have to go and play a better game. And there are plenty of PvP focused games on the market. Rainbow Six, Siege, CSGO for shooters, and so on. But really, when I say remove PvP, I'm talking more about making Crucible its own download, a separate client from the rest of the game. For example, you go to Steam or PlayStation Store or wherever, you have Destiny 2, and then Destiny Crucible as its own thing, to have nothing to do with each other beyond sharing accounts or whatnot. As you're probably aware, Destiny 2 has client-size issues, leading to them removing a huge chunk of the game not too long ago. Now, instead of removing stuff that might actually be good or interesting, why don't you remove the completely broken PvP part of the game instead? Splitting the clients would help with that. It would help alleviate almost every other problem PvP has. Balance, for example. Beyond Light gave us exciting new stasis powers, the ability to freeze and shatter enemies, and kick some serious ice. But ask anyone who has touched Crucible in the last almost a year by now, and they'll happily tell you how completely depraved stasis is in PvP. It's one of the most basic principles of any game with PvP in. If you remove the ability to move, players will not be happy. Remember the first Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger or whatever, where Jin and his ice car ran rampant, forcing you to waggle like a toddler playing Wii Sports? How about any Dota style game with a crowd control heavy meta? Developers always arrive at the same point. Wow, this isn't fun to just be standing still unable to do anything because someone pressed their magical stun button on you. That applies to Destiny as well. It isn't fun to be constantly stuck. Stasis is fun in PvE. Makes players want to pull their hair out in Crucible. That extends beyond stasis. Anytime Bungie put in a new gun, they have to consider, how can we make a gun that is interesting to use but doesn't completely break Crucible? Every aspect of the game suffers from this, especially because they don't take a, say, Final Fantasy XIV approach where PvP and PvE have completely different rules, abilities, skills, and stats. I mean, let's face it, Crucible should be pre-made loadouts that you choose from at the start of a battle anyway. At the end of the day, everyone benefits if they split Crucible off into its own client. See, even if from a lore perspective it's supposed to train us by getting stomped into Crucible, you might as well train a firefighter by setting him on fire 13 times. Gameplay wise, doesn't make me any better in PvE by going to Crucible. I'm no better now than when I started doing Crucible. I still get stomped every match on PC. It's comical. I go into Crucible, I get atomized instantly by 15 spastic hunters who move 5 times faster than I do and instantly headshot me with their amazing hand cannons. Full disclaimer, I am terrible at Crucible. I'm not going to pretend like I'm any good at it. I hate doing it. Sometimes the game's like, well, you want this item that has nothing to do with Crucible. You better hop into Crucible and have the opposite of fun. That's another reason it should be split. Why on earth am I forced to do PvP for an exotic or a catalyst or whatever, when a lot of the time it isn't even a weapon designed for PvP in the first place? At the very least, they should give alternatives, like kill 10 Guardians or kill 1,000 Hive. Don't make people do PvP when your PvP is completely broken and not fun. On top of that, the amount of cheating in Crucible is hilarious. I've only ever bothered doing Trials of Osiris in Destiny 2 a few times, but at least a quarter of my matches had a form of cheating that I can confirm, as in, this guy is cheating, because the match just started and I've instantly been killed. My whole team just instantly burned to death somehow within the first second of the match. And look at how Bungie are forced to disable trials every other weekend because of cheaters or a glitch or something. If something is that broken and troublesome, you excise it. Well, let's move on from PvP though. Had I made this video a while back, I would have included something along the lines of universal ornaments not sucking. But Season of the Splicer gave us huge improvements there to the whole collection and shaders, so I have no real complaints there. I know some people are very unhappy with the number of ornaments they can unlock and add to their collection. You know, they have to monetize it somehow, and I think they're relatively generous. Now, of course, yeah, if you want to unlock like every item you have, then that kind of sucks, but that's more of a subjective personal thing. I don't mind it. I understand why other people dislike it though. And they've only just put in the system. At the time I'm like recording this, it's only been in the game for a week or so. So there's plenty of time in the future for them to adjust it, make it better. Other than perhaps wishing we could apply ornaments to exotics, and frankly if we removed PvP or separated it we could do that because it wouldn't matter, and also shaders for exotic weapons, I'm fairly happy with the visual customization the game has at the moment. But the next big thing I have though, I think Destiny should have 4 weapon slots. Right now we have kinetic, energy and heavy. I think we should have kinetic, energy, heavy and melee. Now if you ask me, making melee a dedicated weapon slot would improve the weapon flow of the game so much. Because let's look at it in older terms. Before melee and swords, the heavy weapons had each their own sort of niche. Sure, rocket launchers have generally been kind of underutilized, apart from, you know, things like the Yellowhorn, but they have their niche. I genuinely think the game would be greatly improved if melee were its own thing. Instead of running on heavy ammo, it operated on an energy system. Remove ammo from swords, make it so they have an energy bar like the super. It rapidly fills up, rapidly compared to a super, that is, and then it's drained and replenishes over time, can be adjusted by things like armor and weapon mods, along with other such modifiers. Replenish melee energy on melee kill. I said melee, not sword, because I think we should have more melee options, even if they're purely cosmetic and still all operate the same and just have different animations. Alternatively, they could have different playstyles, such as swords being better at killing multiple enemies, whereas an axe is better at single targets. Gotta have spears, swords, axes, dual blades. I think it's safe to say a lot of players enjoy melee, and it would be nice to have it expanded in this way, and not feeling like I always have to use a sword. Because right now, yeah, I feel like I always have to use a sword because A, they're fun, B, a lot of the times they're just the best, and there'll be like 1 or 2 situations where maybe you need a rocket launcher or a machine gun, maybe you need both, so you put on the Xenophage. But when I think about the general flow of combat, how you swap between weapon types, I could only see this improving the game a great deal, frankly. Now, maybe you need to remove energy types from swords, because otherwise you could have all 3 elements covered easily, but, well, that's neither here nor there. I just think it would be good to have melee as its own slot. Moving on, we need more player customization and more races. Character creation is, to put it bluntly, almost pointless, very limited, and the only thing it changes is your voice in the 30 seconds of dialogue your character has throughout the entire game. First up, we need more customization options, and upon implementation, Bungie could give everyone a free remake and customized ticket. Subsequent ones could be sold for silver, so that's another revenue stream for the developers. Each race could even have its own skills. They don't need to be anything exciting or game-changing. They could be relatively pointless. They could be, I don't know, humans get 1% more glimmer. Awoken have a chance to harvest 1 extra material from gathering nodes. Exo can insta-kill raid bosses. Alternatively, could be something as simple as different jump or slide animations, or a racial emote, giving each race a unique finisher. My point here being that which race you choose should have some impact beyond the voice, because otherwise why even bother having it at all? We need Fallen or Elixni as a player race too. I've been saying this for a while, then Mithrak showed up with the House of Light and I was like, oh well there you go, there's the reasoning. Now with Season of the Splicer we have even more reason for why it should happen. I mean let's face it, the Exo and the Fallen are the coolest races in Destiny. I know my buddy would play the game solely because of Fallen being playable. You could add a little quest or a strike along the lines of, oh, we're picking up readings of new Guardians who are in trouble, blah blah. Turns out the new Guardian is Fallen, who's now risen. Completing it unlocks the ability to make a Fallen character who likewise has a different intro somewhat. Actually, you know what that intro should be? When you start the game as a Fallen, you're a little baby, you can't do anything, you can't move. Another player has to come along, pick you up and start shoving ether at you by killing enemies. Then you have like a bar at the bottom of the screen. When it's like a quarter of the way full, your little baby Fallen gets a hand and a little gun. And then you can help, you can go pew 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 and shoot enemies. Then when you're at like 50%, you pop up into a Greg. Then, you know, when you get to 100%, mission's completed, you turn into like a captain style Fallen. Yes, that is what it should be, 100%. You can put that behind an expansion paywall, there you go. Make us buy, I don't know, Witch Queen or Lightfall, whatever it's gonna be, to unlock the Fallen as a race, and I would probably change my Exo to a Fallen, or maybe just make a Fallen Hunter, who knows. But that actually leads me nicely into my next point. My final point, indeed, the game sorely needs to be improved for new players. Right now, if you start up Destiny 2 without having any prior experience or knowledge, it's a complete mess. You're thrown into this world with 500 different quests and systems and things to do, no clear path as to what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, how you should be doing it. It's like, wait, I have the base story? Did I do the Red War? I can't do the Red War is gone. What do I do? Do I do Beyond Light? Or do I do Forsaken? Or what am I doing? What is this season stuff? There's like all these concurrent storylines, and maybe I need to make a Destiny 2 starter guide actually, but I've seen it myself with friends who are baffled when they start the game up and they're like, what? And for me, coming back after 3 years, when I started playing again, I was like, huh? Of course, back then, you could still do some of the legacy stuff before it was removed, like Red War, Curse of Osiris, or whatever that thing was called, and the other one? I've already forgotten them. The idea here is you need to slowly introduce systems to a new player, not shove things into their eyeballs. The recent improvements to the new light, well, those helped, but I can definitely see how it can be further streamlined with a new focus. For starters, when you start the game or a new character, you should be given an option. Are you new, and do you want the new player experience? Or do you just want to be dropped right into orbit, skipping the intro stuff and have everything open to you at once, with a note saying roughly how long the new player experience would be to get things rolled out to you? Again, the new light experience isn't terrible, but it could be a lot better. The combination of season plotlines and expansion plotlines, it's just too hard for a lot of players to sort of understand it, I think. Legacy plotlines are like Red War. I mean, you know, we need an NPC who's updated every season, who stands there in the tower, and they explain things to new light players. You go up to them, and then you can say, tell me about the Red War, tell me about Season 1, Season whatever. Zavala could work because he has a nice voice. That's the important thing, though. This NPC needs a good storytelling voice as he explains things to players, with a recap of every season. And it's not mandatory, of course, but it gives you the option to hear the history of this world instead of just sort of being like, wait, I feel like I've missed so much. What happened? And having a good in-game source for this would be very useful, and I can't even imagine it would be too hard to do. I mean, yeah, you'd have to write up a script recapping every season and every plotline, then you'd need like some animations to go with it, but that's really not all that much work in the grand scheme of things, and for how much I think it would help players out, it would be definitely worth it. Those are my main points. The only real problem I have with Destiny is the PvP, which I abhor. I just think it's a complete mess, it's broken, it's just not fun for me. PvE situation I find a lot better, if a little convoluted, and some seasons I really enjoy what they're adding, like Season of the Splicer so far, I'm loving that one. Other seasons more like, I think the developers take some nice steps, just sometimes they also go backward. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and until next time, you guys take care. Ciao.